munching out as they watched cartoons on television. But both kids wore only white underwear. Trino sat up and looked around. "Where's Felix?" "Still sleeping," Beto said, then shoved a small fistful of cereal into his mouth. Half of it dropped down onto his belly onto the carpet. Whatever fell Beto or Gus picked up and put back into their mouths. Felix stumbled into the room a little later, only to put his head in his arms and fall asleep sitting at the table. Once Trino sat down with some milk and cereal, he shoved a foot at Felix's leg. "Wake up, man. Oscar will be here at 10. Felix raised his head and squinted at Trino. "Too bad you can't come. Oscar's wife cooks good. His TV works better too. If things are so good, why don't you just live there?" "All the time," Trino said, working his voice to sound bored. "If Mom didn't have to buy you clothes, we could buy a TV that works instead." Felix gave Trino the finger and followed it with a few ugly words. Trino always smiled when his brother cussed him out. It meant that Trino had scored one good and Felix couldn't come up with anything better to fight back. "You're going to see Oscar today." Beto had come to the table, a handful of cereal in his hand. "None of your business, kid," Felix said, then gave Beto's shoulder a shove away. "But I want to go," Beto said, his large black eyes moving from Felix to Trino. He slowly released his fistful of cereal on the table. "Why can't Oscar take me too?" "He's my father, not yours," Felix told him, his voice starting to change into that bragging tone he used every time Oscar's visit came around. "Your father took off 3 years ago. He's off someplace, probably with another family." Why didn't he like this family?" Beto asked Felix. "Ask Trino your dumb questions. I got to change." He stood up from the table and headed out of the living room. "Go watch cartoons, Beto. I'm hungry." Trino put a spoonful of cereal into his mouth, then let his head into other hand, hoping to block Beto's pathetic face with his arm. Every time Oscar shut up, Beto and Gus got very mixed up. How many times had Trino heard his mom tell his little brothers that Trino's dad was dead? That their dad ran off with some other lady when Beto and Gus were still babies. But Felix's dad lived across town. Felix had to go visit his dad once a month and nobody else could go with him. But today their mom wasn't home, and Beto was still at the table dragging his cereal pieces across the table edge into his mouth, one by one, like he was going to stand there until somebody told him the way it was again. Trino didn't talk to his brother. Finally, Beto ran out of cereal. He just went back to the TV, sat down by Gus, and started munching again. By the time Trino heard a car horn with a familiar honk beep beep near the trailer, he had changed out of the clothes he had slept in. Trino put on some jeans that he saw in a pile and the new black t-shirt his mom had found 2 days ago. It had been left behind in one of the motel rooms. Felix went off in jeans that Oscar had bought him last month, probably hoping he'd buy him more. "Why can't we go with Felix?" Beto asked once again as Felix rode away in Oscar's blue pickup truck. Beto's face pressed against the screen door. "Oscar got his own little kids to worry about," Trino said, hoping that it would be enough for Beto today. "Can we go play video games at Epifano's?" Beto asked, turning his head and looking up at Trino with sad eyes. "You got money?" Trino said, biting off the words in a mad way. "No." Trino had heard the word as the boys Trino hardly heard the word as the boy lowered his face. And slowly walked away. Gus was rolling a truck with only 2 wheels across the carpet in front of the television. Beto sat down on the sofa, saying nothing as tears came out and down his small brown face. "I hate my life," Trino thought, and pushed open the screen door. He let it slam before he sat outside on the cement step. He looked around for anything weird or somebody new, but the other trailers were the same scuffy ones he had seen for 3 years. He saw some kids about Beto's age kicking a dirty ball around and leaned back. "Hey, Beto," he called. "Flacco and Petey are playing out here." Trino felt the edge of the screen door pop against his back. He turned to see his brothers, still only in white underwear, pushing the door to get outside. "Hey, put some clothes on. You want the guys to think you're still babies?" His hand pushing the door closed, and not much later Gus ran out in a big t-shirt that belonged to Garces. Beto came out wearing some shorts but no shirt. "Wait!" Trino grabbed both kids by the shoulders and dragged them into the trailer house. If his mother came home and saw the boys like that, she'd yell at Trino. So many times she had said, "I work hard to buy you clothes. I better see you wear them." Trino was still on the step, watching the kids when he heard a loud car horn. A long white car waited for the kids to move so it could come into the trailer park. The car was old-fashioned and needed a paint job. It had probably belonged to a rich guy once, but now rumbled toward Trino's trailer like it was going to cough up something gross and then die. Trino saw his mother and that tall guy named Nick inside the car. Nick worked the motel night shift and sometimes gave his mom a ride home when she slept over after an extra job. Usually he just left her off with a wave and drove away. This time the old car stopped and shut down in front of Trino's trailer. "Hey Trino, come give your mother a hand," Nick called as he got out of the driver's door. How had Nick remembered his name? Trino wondered. He stood up as his mom got out of the car with a white box in her hands. "We got lucky," she said, smiling. She put the box in Trino's hands. "The people didn't want the leftover sandwiches. We also got half of the groom's cake and half a layer of bride's cake. There's even 2 gugs of..." Trino always liked the cakes, but usually the sandwiches were soft and soggy. Nick handed another 2 boxes to his mom before he pulled out 2 jugs of orange punch. He put them both in one hand and helped open the door for both Trino and his mom to go inside. Trino thought Nick acted like a bellboy, being nice, opening doors. Nick even waited when Beto and Gus came running, calling out to their mother, asking about the boxes. "Did you get cake?" Beto asked, bouncing through the door and running right to Trino, who barely set the box upon the table before Beto tried to open it. "Get lost, kid!" Trino grabbed his little brother's hands and squeezed them enough to make Beto stop. Mom's not going to let you eat cake right now. Just cut him a small piece," his mom said, then laughed. Trino's forehead wrinkled. His mom smiled at Nick, who had set the jugs on the counter beside the sink. Nick laughed with Trino's mom like no one else was in the room. "I want cake too," Gus said, and climbed onto one of the kitchen chairs as soon as his brother did. As Trino cut the cake, he watched his mom and Nick trying to figure out why the guy was still here. His mom went to change clothes. Nick sat at the table and put Gus on his lap. As Beto and Gus ate chocolate cake with their fingers, Nick started telling a story about a cat he had found last night in the motel laundry room. Trino licked the chocolate from the knife, giving Nick the Ojo, just so he knew he shouldn't mess around with his mom. Finally, his mom came out in a red flowered shirt and black shorts. Her black hair was loose, hanging around her shoulders. Her eyes were shining like candy dipped in chocolate. Usually when she came in after working half the night, she dragged around in a robe all day. Where are you going, Mom?" Trino asked straight out. He put the knife on the kitchen counter. "I need to buy Beto some better shoes. Nick said he'd give me a ride to the mall," she answered. Walking behind Nick's chair, she slid her hand across Nick's shoulder as she headed toward the sink. Trino eyed Nick again. Standing, the man towered over Trino, sitting down. Nick's body looked at Nick's face wasn't scared up. No tattoos on his arms, at least from the elbows down. Since Beto and Gus's father had left, no man had been around much until Garces showed up, and Garces wasn't much of a man. Trino jumped when his mother's pointy finger poked his ribs. Listen, I said that I'm taking Beto and Gus along while we're gone. I want you to stay out of trouble. Hear me? We passed Epifano's on our way home today. He got beat up by some boys with knives and a pipe. You better stay away from there, hear me? Her brown eyes nailed him good and hard. Did she know something? Slowly, he wiped his fingers through his black hair before he looked at her. I don't know anything about Epifano. I got things to do today, Mom. I'll be back later. If he hadn't planned to leave his house so early, but he didn't want her staring at him anymore. Trino barely heard his mother call, "Be back before dark," before the screen door slammed behind him. Without thinking, his feet took him towards Ruggiello's house a few streets down. Most of the houses on Passmore Street were old ones, with wide cement porches and iron columns holding up the roof. Some people, like the Ruggiello's grandmother, kept their homes clean and the paint fresh. Others lived in homes with no grass, just junk in the yard. Some parked 2 trucks in the driveway and another in the front yard, or left old sinks and stoves on the sidewalk. Maggio Ruggiello just left. He went to the store for me. He had to walk to the big Food Mart store since Epifano's wasn't open today. Ruggiello's grandmother told Trino. He tried Zipper's house too, but Zipper's mom said he had gone to help out at the tire shop today. Trino thought about hanging out there, maybe earning a little tip money by helping Zipper's uncle change flats. But Trino didn't really feel like sweating over dirty tires. Trino wandered around, breaking a stick up into pieces. He could chuck them at stray dogs, or bounce them off the sidewalk, then kick them off the curb. His mind wandered too, thinking about old Mr. Epifano bleeding on the floor of his store. Thinking about the deadly fire in Rosca's eyes, the crazy book lady, When he had seen Trino, then he ran from Rosca and met the crazy book lady. He thought a little about Lasana and her friends. He thought a little about Lasana and her friends. What were they doing now? Without realizing, he had walked almost to the back parking lot of the big grocery store. He thought he might catch up with Brigello going or coming. Now he has to get to and somebody to find. Since there was more shade, he kept on the store, jumping over the plastic milk crates, thumping sacks of flattened cardboard boxes that had been bundled with heavy plastic tape. He caught the ugly smells of rotting fruits, broken eggs, and spoiled meats. The tall black dumpster against the brick wall were overflowing with old food and trash from the store. Trino picked up the pace and to get away from the dumpsters and shot around the corner of the store without looking.